Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
Kedde kumachanga waliwo aweleza akakali hata yogedde n'ennyali wano Miriyo
Masebe
waliwo omusajja namwewuunya nnyo yaweereza emitwalo 5 nemukubira essimu nga mukulu wa kika mitwalo eki
naye
nga mukulu waki
wakika
otwogeredde ku Mengo mukulu waki
wakika
I'm telling you ene si Katonda yakola obwongo bw'omuntu ne gw'otudde naye wano nina amaanyi mu ggwanga muno aba obweyalowooza bakola strategy bangobe mu gavumenti bakole ki nze ndi Mandwa
emandwa ekola etya
emandwa tegyobe abazibe bakugamba ogatera Mandwa nti gineeseza akayo kale bakalinjo
nti ki
kasita okuba emandwa ekusasula oyo omulenzi oyo ejjokuli ayina mu mutwe bajja ddi mu malamu olabe ku mikolo gya mukozi ngenzi
gyaleero kozi
saagenze na kubitegeka nti he expressed muwagizi wange anjagala nnyo mwagala bankuba mu state house ne banfulumya naye omulenzi n'ajoba famire yange emyaka 9 tinja kumufukambira ku misango gye giweddiza gwe wennyini nange namugende waffe mu lwensinga bajja kundi bajja kubanze sina kyenjogera nabo sina kyenabakola bajja kutegula omulenzi oyo ajja kutegula n'obujozi
lwensinga waliyo
ateze nti okufa ku myaka 65 bwonzita nsanyuka nnyo bwonsiba mu kkomera nfa mangu kati sina kyentya maze emyaka 9 nga antaddeko obujozi bwe bwonna ku misango gye gyeyeddiza I can't bring this I will never talk to him era sitegene mu bintu bya
kati awo tuveewo tugende ku nsonga
obujozi obwajja kubusasula
awo tuveewo Tamale tugende ku nsonga
omuziba akugamba
okateerera Mandwa
nti njinesiza akalyo kali bakalinjo muziba n'akugamba ti okaboneekizira okubi okawunganya omukakitaawaza alireeka
mu Luganda kyeki
kitegeeza nti bw'olabanga ekintu ekizza okusanyawo famire eyo tojoganga musajja kumujooga nnyo okaboneekizira okubi okawunganya omukakitaawaza alireeka ti bw'olabanga ekizze okumalawo famire eyo waayo nnyoko naye mukakitaawo asigalewo amaka gawone omuziba yagenda yalaba omuntu gwotasobola kuwaayo naye omuziba akugamba okaboneekizira okubi okawonganya okumukakitaawaza alireeka ejjooga eryo limujooga abantu mwalirire si
waayo nnyoko mukakitaawa sigale nga azaalira amaka
is not a good decision but the muziba tells you if the family egenda kuggwawo kkiriza nnyoko yaafe muweeyo okaboneekizira okubi okawunganya okumukakitaawaza alireeka mayinza abaziba mbagala nyamuno tye muziba
anti wabaliraana
kakati omuziba najjako bw'aba yaganye ekintu nga nzi kiŋŋaana niŋŋaana
olimu empeke y'abaziba ndowooza
omuziba akugamba balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala kasi omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala aba aganye
kitegeeza ki ekyo
kamusansala yali mwami w'ekiziba nagende wa mukwano gwe bamuwa omwenge mungi nnyo nayonoona mu buliri kati bwakeera kumakyanaga obuliri mbwonoonyemu nayogera nti naatema nadduka nayingira ekibira bwayingira ekibira musansala naabula naye omunoonya naabula nabunduka enviiri bwati naabula ali mu kibira ly'amatungulu kati obwana obwava mu bwakabaka bwa musansala bwagendanga mu kibira okulya amatungulu okukolaki nebumulaba omusajja bwana ne bumwetegereza baali bakola mu lubiri abasenye naabo musansala aliyo kaliyo nabubuuza musansala yakolaki abuuza obwana bwakolanga mu lubiri yabutegeera yali abumanyi nga kabaka bwobeera akajende wa munywanyiwe akanywa amalo amangi akania munju ya munywanyiwe abaddu bakawulira abazaana bakawulira bonna bakawulira balindebera kaseeko ka musansala musansala yakasirida kasita omuziba akugamba ngaomujoze nnyo nojoga omuziba akuga nti balindebera kaseeko ka musansala
olabika olimu omusaayi omuziba
kasita omuziba akuga nti balindebera kaseeko ka musansala abatajja ekikola balindebera kaseeko ka musansala
nekano kooli owera akaye anti era akaye waliyo negombola bagiyita kiziba
abaddu bakawulira nti bakawulira
abazaana bakawulira abaana bakawulira balindebera
munywanyiwe akanywa amaalo amangi akania munju ya munywanyiwe abaana bakawulira abaddu bakawulira balindebera kaseeko ka musansala kasita omuziba akuga nti balindebera kaseeko ka musansala
olwaganye nyangire
naye kyebakola abaana bakomawo mu lubiri ne boogera
nti twamulabye
tulina omusajja gwe tulaba atubuuza naye yabundukadde enviiri yakolaki atubuuza ti abaddu bakawulira tibakawulira abazaana bakawulira tibakawulira balindebera kaseeko ka musansala kwe kugenda ne bakima musansala bamukimayo mu kibira ne bamuzza ku bwakabaka obwana bwayogera tulina omusajja gutula nga musansala yabula kasita omuziba akuga nti balindebera kaseeko ka musansala abatajja ekikola nga abatajja ekikola tojoga muziba nze abantu bonna nakalikyeya kati abasoga mbalinamu omwana luwamputu
naye gwe buli wamujooli
wonna nabajankole ate waliwo omusajja omugaga tewali musajja muganda
wekoledde security
atalina mukazi muyima abayima balina emikisa
abasoga obalina mu mwana oba
n'abasaamya
nabo obalinamu obikolo bigenderedde oba
omulugwala mutya
oyugose
mukambwe yetagaddwa ayina gweyokya butto omulugwala oyo mutya
ojo omufuti waliyo abakakamu ojo ofunayo omulugwala
n'omulundi ayina ebiteega azaala
gwe nawe owebitego
anti ekiteega bw'oba yagala
kumandwa zolina
anti ekiteega bw'oba yagala okulwanyisa ekiteega okiteega kalaayi ng'ogivuunisa tekirinya lusozi kiremera mu nju bwaza
kati wuuyo okimanyi nokitega kakati lwaki tofuna funa omulundi
ejjembe ng'onaalisobola gomba lya mbizi oba b amayembe ng'agakola omwana n'afuwa oba n'apama gatema ekikumi ate ekyokuula waliwo ekyokuula
mbadde manyi nti ebyo byonna byoyogedde biyitibwa byokoola
ekyokola kirala
nze nali manyi byebyo byonna ng'obigasse wamu mayembe ebiki bidogo
kimubeera nakyo mu famire nekyetuma kati bwe mana yambadde esaati yo ekyokola kijja nekinkonkona esaati ya bandangi nga tugitumye tolede baga nti ejjembe lyamu nokyekola ejjombe lyogera ng'abaana
kyo kyetuma kyokka kibanja kyokka
kyo kyetuma ewaka nga munyumya ekitambo kirala ekiteeka kirala kyo kasita okiteeka ekalaayi tekibuuka ekiteeka tikirinya lusozi
tekimanyi kusalinkiriza bwekigyetolola
ejjembe omwana n'afuuwa nga bali mu nsavu oba n'apama negumba ly'embisi
likola litye
n'amajini masiraamu ejjini teriyingira wali mbisi
kitegeeza bw'oba oyagala okugoba majini onyokeza eggumba lya mbizi
olyambala mwanda we ategekulu
ate oba mu bulago lwaki olyambala mwanda we lwaki si mu bulago lwaki si mu bulago nga bw'oyambala sapule
I help you. I predict things. Nakugamba nti banda tubadde wano ebbanga ddene naye bwenjogera ebigambo 10 8 kulabika and I write kati soma akataba
oli kukyenda katonyeza munana akatabo
some people say
omuwandiisi Tamale Mirundi akatabo kaakano nkalina kaliko eddiba liddugavu understanding mafia politics handbook
nalinga watikidde benaali
kakati wano ennaku z'omwezi omwaka gwekafuluma gwejagala tulyoke tutandike 2012 Desemba naku z'omwezi zaali na 25 yali Christmas gwekafuluma wakayita emyaka 10 akatabo kano kakafuluma
nze njagala nnyo afende muhoozi muwandikidde akatabo kembadde njagala okuleeta muwandikidde akatabo ka birthday fende muhoozi mwagala nnyo nnyo emusabira
esebo
omanyi omuntu gwoyagala ne bwotajja ku mukolo ne bwotajja ku ki but the fact that he appointed me selected me among many Ugandans that was satisfying me abakatuliki baga nti tokuwanidde oyingiremu wange naye omwoyo gwange gunaawo
yogera bwogezi kigambo mwoyo gwawe gunaawo
I'm not capable
ne bwoba toyingidde mwange naye ekigambo
yes
okay kakati omutwe ogugamba nti akatabo engeri gyerikali kakadde oyinza okuba wakagula nako dda genda ku lupapula lwa 29 omutwe gugamba nti how mafia politics is applied in parliament. Although many would wish to describe the situation in parliament as a power struggle between the legislature and the executive, the presence of mafia politics is very prominent in the August House. Like in my earlier submissions, my considered view is that the political enemies of President Museveni are manipulating the House as they have tried to do with the religious organizations, Mengo, and the civil society. However, we need to critically look at Parliament as an institution. Uganda's Parliament is composed of 3 formidable groups, and they are, number 1, the opposition. These have come to realize that it is easier to hoodwink NRM MPs to support their interests if they are packaged as national interests. For example, NRM MPs were tricked to support essential motions against ministers believing that they are fighting corruption. What the opposition MPs did was to package these anti-government motions as intended to solve a problem in government. What the NRM MPs overlook is that such motions undermine the credibility of their government. It is not in interest of the opposition to clean up their opponent. However, during such motions, we hear slogans and phrases such as, "This is not NRM, this is a national matter that should unite all of us because corruption affects all of us irrespective of political affiliation." Therefore, NRM MPs on many occasions end up helping the opposition. In fact, for a party like NRM capable of cleaning itself, the censure motions against ministers would originate from the movement caucus, not the opposition, as the current trend is today. This explains why the Public Accounts Committee, headed by the opposition, has taken center stage in the battle against corruption. Why the government has failed to highlight list at PAC is its own creation, although it is a Commonwealth principle that the opposition heads PAC. This does not mean that it grants us freedom. PAC is not CID that investigates cases. No, it depends on the Auditor General's report, whose independence depends on the leaders in a particular country. In case of Uganda, this is granted by President Museveni. No auditor is a foreign diplomat with diplomatic immunity. What this means is that the Auditor General's independence is granted by the government and the president, not the opposition. However, the public has been made to believe that the Auditor General is a byproduct of the opposition, which has grabbed the credit from the government. Another important factor is that not all countries have vibrant parliaments. Having an elected parliament does not ensure its freedom. For example, between 1980 to 1985, we had multi-party politics. Did we have PAC in parliament? Did the opposition play its role? In many cases, opposition MPs resorted to boycotts. They did not have the political clout like today, and it's because the executive then did not guarantee grant its freedom because Obote was not a Democrat. Parliament's freedom has been granted by the NRM government. Number 2, money-making group. This is a shrewd group that has taken advantage of the corruption in government. Although Parliament must be populist, but this does not mean abandoning its cardinal role. MPs have realized that once the corrupt are subjected to pressure, they play ball. Another score by Parliament against the executive, the nature of its operation. Although this is a legislative assembly whose cardinal duty would be to make laws, Parliament has surpassed the powers of other institutions. Has usurped the powers of other institutions, and the public does not see this danger of moving towards a parliamentary dictatorship. Parliament is seen by the gullible public as succeeding where the executive has failed. When ministers are put to task in Parliament, they are left to fight alone. This explains why ministers Saida Bumba and Dr. Kidu Makubuya and the Choga ministers decided to implicate the president in their scandals to win favors from PAC members who are from the opposition. This creates double loyalty. But who can best help one in danger? Is it PAC or the president? I was amazed when State House officials handed over a list of RDCs to the Presidential Parliamentary Committee whose bias against the president is obvious even to a baby. The committee recommended the sacking of RDCs because they knew that it would undermine the president. It was intended to prove to the affected RDCs that the president could not protect them. In my opinion, Parliament cannot verify one's academic qualifications. This is the role of courts because parliamentarians themselves have had this academic problem and have always been referred to the courts. In order to undermine the president, the committee ordered the scrapping of State House scholarships because they were giving the president political mileage, which had to be undermined. Interestingly, Parliament was not abolishing the scheme. It was rather being transferred from the president, the Minister of Education, where they can easily share the offers for themselves. Furthermore, unlike the executive who has strictly observed their role, Parliament orders the arrest of corrupt government officials. They have ordered sackings. They have handled public issues like markets. They have revived court cases. They have intimidated the judiciary, IGGs, and other government institutions. In a nutshell, they successfully insulated themselves from public scrutiny because they are perceived as an active parliament. In villages, the LC chairperson who follows the law becomes unpopular. People want action, not legal jargons. Fortunately for MPs, nobody comes to question their mode of operation. The media wrongly believe that the parliament is complementing the executive. They think that MPs are doing what the executive has failed to do. Parliament is also the largest source of information in Uganda. Its news in many cases follow into the sensational nature which boosts newspaper sales. This has cemented the bond between MPs and the media. Secondly, newspapers sales depend on conflicts, non-development issues. The way our parliament operates always reminds me of mob justice. Many villages prefer mob justice because it is quicker at dispensing justice, precise, and does not require advocates or call for witnesses. Justice is done there and then. No corruption. This is why Operation Wembley was popular and faster at solving the problem that courts had failed to sort out, and at a low cost, just bullets and fuel to transport the operatives. This is why when the executive tries to ask Parliament to restrict itself to its role, it attracts public anger because people see this as an attempt to undermine a working parliament. Number 3, ambitious young MPs. This is a group comprising young people in parliament. This is the dominant voice of parliament. Their bond is buoyed by the following factors. They are young and view themselves as future leaders. They have realized that it is easy to get quick money from the confusion both in government and the outside world. Number 2, they know that in order to retain their constituencies and earn public trust and cover their footmarks, they must take on the executive. Number 3, they have reaped the political benefits. They are always quoted by the government. Our government gives more attention to the trouble causers with its ranks than those who support it. In fact, what many of our political commentators overlook is the possibility of these MPs transforming themselves into a political party. Signs of this are clear. They are actually nominal party members to their respective parties. They are confronted with a choice between their group interests. They prefer the latter. Too many MPs, tags, symbols, or membership cards are becoming liabilities. This is best demonstrated by actions of some who disassociate publicly from government decisions, and it is becoming clear that many ministers see themselves independent candidates in the future. Those pursuing the anti-Museveni agenda in parliament follow the same script like their counterparts elsewhere. They want to parade themselves as all institution when actually they are a few individuals pursuing their own interests. The trick is to make the Uganda public and international community that a whole parliament, not a few individuals pursuing individual interests, are causing trouble in parliament. When it comes to religion, the actions of Father Geristan and retired Bishop Niringiye are deliberately attributed to be the position of all Uganda's religious leaders. I landed on a document which some religious leaders had authored as a pastoral letter and were giving those appending signatures 5 million on last year's Easter. Some Easter sermons were paid for as adverts to create an impression that government was facing trouble from religious leaders, whereas it was the work of Ningiriye and company. The discredited non-government organizations like the Law Society were part of this scheme. Teachers' unions, women and human rights groups joined the bandwagon. Makerere University was setting up a fellowship under Ningiriye to teach religion and good governance. This was a strategy to use university students for walk-to-work crusades. This attempt also failed. The teachers' union faces a credibility problem. Its members were more interested in knowing how the union utilizes their money than the low salaries. In other words, union leaders have no credibility to take on the government when there were rotten skeletons in the Law Society's cupboard. In case of the Law Society, its record stinks like a decomposing corpse. How many Ugandans believe in the credibility of the Law Society depending on the conduct of the land friends and the land judges? The president, therefore, did not attack these groups. He isolated his critics from the group. Parliament is also using the same tactics. They are portraying themselves as parliament, not as an individual. This trick is bound to fall as elsewhere. Secondly, like elsewhere, they do not discuss the gist of the matter. This reasoning features everywhere in their attempts to discredit the president. They don't tell us that MPs are arrestable. It is as if it's a taboo or illegal. With their allies in the media, they do not discuss that the parliamentary privileges go hand in hand with the responsibility. They do not tell us that MPs do not enjoy diplomatic immunity. They are Ugandans. It is not allowed anywhere for an MP to use parliamentary privilege to malign and discredit others who do not have the chance to go to parliament to respond. However, Ugandan MPs believe that they are above the law. Parliamentary discipline requires MPs to substantiate and to table evidence which are investigated and verified by the investigative institutions of government. A courageous MP can, at the same words or accusations against another parliament. However, Ugandan MPs believe that with impunity they can do anything. This means that MPs could not be allowed to discredit and the government in the death of Nebanda using parliamentary privileges. No sensible Ugandan should support this. This is not parliamentary democracy. This is something else. So can nyimire mwa onyonyolao tulioka tugende ku
era kaweddeyo era kawandika nakawandika
wakawandika 212 soko nyonyolao wano
why
akasigade nja kasomanga
what happened nababulira nti the parliament had usurped the powers of the executive. Why? Nembagamba nti chairman wero si wano akiza mu mob justice abantu bamwagala nnyo. One of the reasons why people support me is witchcraft. I don't believe in the courts of law.
Dogo.
Although they have trained the lawyers. Abana bange wewe. Enkumyezi motoka zange zikomawo. Nze sigamangako mutani wange naddala oyo omukulu tugenda tugende tuwaabe mu kkooti. Enkumyezi mbaleeta wano nga baavula. An educated man like me was a master's degree. I resort to witchcraft. Era nawandika ekitabo ekirabako the role of witchcraft in a malicious society. The role of witchcraft in a malicious society. Nze waliwo embeera awo ndyawo enkoko ku winto teri mulalu gwe siwa kisente. Teri mulalu gwe siwa ssente. Abategeefu sibawo. Banakuga ninooli agawa ssente bamuyitaani. Tumumanyi jjajja bbaamu.
Bamweta jjajja bbaamu.
Bamweyana atambulira mbalalu.
Bamweyana wamungamba. Atambulira mbalalu. Kati wowe mulalu nawe ngofuna.
Nengende butabika nyizo okubaga nti oyaveeyo n'oyaveeyo ebyewabwe bye byamwonoona. Kakati nababuulira ne mbagamba nti palamenti yammwe erina ekizibu. Ekisooka Parliament has upped powers from other executives. Up to today, Museveni ina manyi mu Parliament. Judiciary yerwanako anda katulebe nekuba Parliament ya kadaka. Ngateisa mateeka ne basalira emisango kavumana asala emisango. But they got it. Why? Abalamuzi baba wa sente mmeka. The battle between the executive and the Parliament, the judiciary and the Parliament helped the judiciary. Kati omulamuzi ne bwafa aina sente mmeka. Basala misango mifu. Waliwo musango gundi katagalo yabaga namwe muliyeyo ku sente. Ne balulinga. Ne bagenda mu kooti lukwago. When the Parliament is in the session, teriyajiyimiriza lukwago ne segona bagenda. The battle between the judiciary and the Parliament ended in the victory of the judiciary. Museveni yeta basobola. Museveni bagobayo kubanga bali bakola constitution ya Uganda. Balowooza, they had in mind how did your body manipulate the country. They had your body nabagamba nti Museveni bwe yajja mu buyinza yafugira mu constitution ya Kagamusa. Did he put people in tension? Mbadde nyingira omwana nangamba bw'owuliriza gavumenti ya Museveni waliwo baadde basoma amawulire ga national television okiwulidde nti wali abakutta abakazi mu gavumenti ya Museveni bakwata abakazi. Museveni yagamba once you rape a woman we kill you. Museveni naga nti ffe mu famire yaffe empiso bwe yabulanga nga tuginoonya a needle could not disappear. How can a person disappear in a kaboot? Babuliramu. Why? When you are fighting, when you want to defeat a revolutionary, force him to want to do his early achievements. Museveni yalete mirembe, Museveni yalete mirembe, ochabinyumiza abantu kumwengeze bakuba. Ati tebakutimbula. Museveni yalete mirembe, Museveni yalete byogere bakube. All of what he came with has been, if you want to force a revolutionary, if you want to defeat a revolutionary politics, tumusoma. Once you want, if you don't want a revolution to occur, don't start it. Because a revolution does not stop in the middle. It's like a pregnancy. Tusoma revolutionary politics. Okay, take it? If you don't want a revolution to occur, don't start one. Ngabana kana kafekete akali mu Kampala ekazanyira kuba boda noyogera mu bantu n'ogamba tulese ekyuma ekyogera emyaka noyogera n'ogamba katwagala ekyuma kya kansa noyogera these corruption scandals kana kavubuka bikali mu kakabanda bagula kagule, but you are inciting the population to riot. Nabaga nti when you see when a drunkard woman sweeps herself naked before drunkard men, she's raped. Nembaga mugamba buli omwenzi alina amateeka agamufuga tonaaba sabbuuni wa muloozi no awunya bulala bw'obaddayo ekasooka bwekyekingi oyinza ogenda n'ennika ng'oyiyita omukazi agenda okukebera owa naku zino watandise okwambala ku nika beerako nazeewaka ng'olumu oyambala nika ng'ewaka weeziri bali kukwata nayo ovagalana
ng'ewakazi ogula zoyamba
ozigula nazo n'obeera nazo tiwaliwo lwenyambala ku nika kubanga abakazi abo bali obuzaavaani bwe akuwahaaga takuwahaaga abuuza kawoowo bakake bw'ogenda okwenda genda n'akawoowo kawaka kodda nako